everyone, my name is Clay and welcome to Terminally Nerdy. Yes, I'm wearing a wrist brace, the whole hand thing I talked about a while back. It's starting to affect my wrist now. Wrist brace helps though, and I've got gloves coming. Arthritis gloves. So today, we're going to start what I call the World Building Journal, and I'm going to talk about my experiences and the way I do world building and world design. And I'm going to be using a specific world that I'm actually in the process of building to kind of discuss it. In the description box below, you will find a link to a Google Docs file. You can't edit it, but you can view it, of a world I'm designing called Aethrin. I've tied Aethrin into my Patreon rewards. One of my rewards now is for $5. I'll help you design an NPC magic item or artifact for use in your own game, and then that NPC gets added to that homebrew world. I've already created one. It's a goblin for my $5 Patreon Nizul, my patron. Yeah, patron, not Patreon. Patron. So I created an NPC backstory for NPC called Gobbledygook. So he's going to be in there. But today we're going to start at the very foundation for world building. So first and foremost, I'm going to define world building, and that is designing a world for use in some sort of work of fiction. In my case, it's for tabletop gaming. Specifically, in my case, I wanted to design a world because I haven't done it in forever. And I have a lot of free time now, and I figured it'd be fun. And I've had an idea in my head for something for years. And in my opinion, the first step when you want to sit down and do some world building is you need to find inspiration for your world. Understand that at this point, whatever idea you have has probably been done in some form or another. So the idea is to take inspiration from somewhere. Do you want to make a post-apocalyptic setting? Do you want to make a fantasy setting? Do you want to make a unique fantasy setting, a steampunk setting, whatever? You want to find some form of inspiration in some form of existing fiction, and then change, modify, and adapt that to suit your purposes. For example, in Aethrin's case, I wanted a unique fantasy setting with a bit of technology involved, and I sat down and I started thinking about it, and I thought of a game that almost nobody's ever played. It was a PC Japanese role-playing game developed, as far as I know, by non-Japanese speakers, called Septerracore. And what always interested me about Septerracore was that the idea behind the world was there was some sort of cataclysm and the world was left as plates floating in air. There was no actual land, it was just layers of earth floating in space. And I've always been intrigued by that concept. So, my inspiration for Aethrin was to essentially do something similar to that. So, Aethrin, at its core, is a world of floating land masses. And in my case, this is how I changed things. I made it surrounding a storm of magic as if it was a planet's core. So it rotates and it spins around this storm at the middle of the world. That was how I found inspiration. But you can find inspiration anywhere. Let's say you want to sit down and you say, I want to make a desert setting. Then look into things look into Arabian Nights, look into Dark Sun, which was a desert setting. Read books based on, desert-based stuff. Look at how the Arabians worked, how the Egyptians worked. And you can start taking disparate aspects of these things to start building. You're going to need to find your inspiration from somewhere. And it could just be as simple as, I want a basic fantasy world. As basic as you can get is, humans, elves, dwarves on standard land masses. You're still finding inspiration from something. You also want to find inspiration for the aspects of your world. So Aethrin, for example, is floating. Well, then I start trying to think of, how are they going to get around? Sky ships. There's a ton of books that involve flying, magical sky ships. There's one by Robin Hobb, I forget the name of it, but it involves I think it's living traders, where there's traders and wood ships that are alive. There was the Cinder Spire, the Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher recently. Again, I'm taking ideas that I find in other things and putting them together into my own unique thing. When you're building a world, that's probably where you want to start, especially if you're a first timer or even if you're experienced. You want to look at a bunch of different things, pick the parts you like, use that as inspiration for your own. Now, the next time we bring up the World Builder's Journal, I'm going to talk about the methods of world building. So stick around for that. That'll be next month. As always, folks, if you like what I'm doing, hit that like button. If you don't like it, feel free to hit the dislike button. Hey, it works. Feel free to subscribe if you want more shenanigans, tomfoolery, and videos about GM tips and such, especially the reviews. Support me on Patreon if you so desire, link in the description box below. And as always, folks, thanks for watching, and remember, stay nerdy! Hey!